and they're here. So I don't have an opportunity right now to be able to pick out who's new and who's not, but a warm welcome to folks that are coming to their first meetings or haven't been here before. It's great to have you. I invite you to come back anytime. This is great. So a couple things about tonight. First of all, we don't have the coach's video, and we're not going to actually have the coach videos this year. I spoke to Herb Bernstein, who is here with us tonight, and he's actually the surprise guest I talked about. And I mentioned to him about the coach videos, and I asked him, I said, if we ask for the coach videos, is that really just going to add that one thing to the coach's plate that may just push them over the edge completely this year? And Herb paused for a second and said, yeah, it just might. So we're going to let the coaches off the hook this year for the videos, but we do have Herb's actually going to speak to us a little bit tonight and give us some scoop on what's going on. And also, we were unable to get an Oregon State writer with us tonight, so we won't have that, unfortunately. But we're gonna keep trying for the rest of the games, for the remaining ones that we have. Also, I'm actually going to turn it over to Steve Scott. He doesn't know I'm doing this right now, and I'll take over letting people in. But Steve, can you mention just a couple things about the YouTube channel and where they can find the recordings?
Well, with my limited technical skills, I've tried to create on YouTube a channel for this club. Essentially, it will be sort of the library for the recordings of all of these speakers in our meetings. So if you open up your YouTube account, you should be able to search for either Cal Good Club or SAC Bears. Otherwise, I will also share a link in this chat here, and Gary will also probably share it through the weekly mail. But check it out. Go to the page and subscribe. And if you do that, you should be able to play back any meetings you'd like to. And I'm going to look for the link right here. And let's see. Let me see if I can get it. Anyway, that's about that really. But I'll check out the channel.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So with that, let me see what else can I talk about here that I wanted to mention. And I was talking about how we have a lot of people here. Andrea joined the meeting. Andrea is here again with us, our old friend. So it's good to have her here. And I mentioned that we have Herb Bernstein here, who is the Associate Athletic Director for Communications, is joining us. He's going to speak to us a little bit. And also from the athletic department, who has just joined in the meeting and apparently got booted out, is coming back in. I'll give her a second to join back in, but Beth Vetch, who is the Associate Athletic Director for Development. So it's great to have some folks here from the athletic department. And I just want to kind of fill you in one more time, just to remind you that you can register for the rest of the meetings that we have. They're all set up, and in the emails I've been sending out, they've got the links to them. So I'm very excited about the lineup of speakers we have. And the next up on the list is this coming Tuesday, which it's going to be big game week. All right. And so, and it's also Thanksgiving. So even though normally our Wednesday is our normal meeting dates, and those have been a little off, actually, this one is our regular meeting date because Thanksgiving week, we always meet on Tuesday because nobody's going to show up on Wednesday. So we're going to meet on Tuesday, and our speaker is actually here with us tonight. I see him in the Hollywood Squares. We're going to be hearing from Robert Paylor. And he's waving to us now. Robert, you weren't expecting to speak tonight. Do you want to say hello? And
yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you. Robert Paylor, former Cal rugby player, graduate of the class of 2020. Really excited to speak next week and share my story with you all. But thank you for welcoming me here today.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Robert. And we'll see you. We'll see you 1 week from tonight. All right, so I'm looking forward to that. And then, and also big game. Well, first of all, this week's game against Oregon State, in case you don't know, is at 12:30 on Fox on FS1. And big game next week is going to be actually it's a Friday game, and it is going to be at 1:30 p.m. on Fox. And sure, absolutely, the year that we can't go to games, they're afternoon games. So I guess they're saving the night games for when we can go back in the stadium. And then following that, and our speaker for the Oregon game on Wednesday, December 2nd, is going to be Dave Lambros. So be sure to sign up for that. Dave's always a lot of fun. Get the latest from the Pac-12 official side. And then the following week, Wednesday the 9th, against Washington State, that meeting is going to be Rich Campbell, former Cal quarterback. And then finally on Monday, this is an odd day, I know, Monday, the December 14th, for the game against a team I'm not familiar with, to tell you the truth. It's a team called TBD. So that's a game that we don't know who we're going to be playing yet.
John Anderson.
Join the meeting.
Okay, and that we're going to have Dr. Marissa Nichols from the Cameron Institute, and I really encourage you to sign up for that one. That's going to be a really very interesting. It's a fascinating program, and so you want to be sure to be here for that. Okay, so as I said, I mentioned that we're going to have a surprise guest tonight. So we've asked Herb Benenson to join us this evening, to give us a little bit of, maybe a little bit of the story on the chain of events leading up to the change and getting to UCLA, and some of the logistics and all the craziness that happened with that. And anything else he wants to share with us about the goings on in the athletic department. So again, Herb is the Associate Athletic Director for Communications. So Herb, I'm going to turn it on over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good to see everybody. It's been a while since I've been in front of this group. I think it was probably about 12 years ago, and the big topic was whether we were going to print media guides or not. So things have changed a little bit since that time. I do want to add one thing about game times, though. It's funny you mentioned that the games that are in the afternoon. The funny thing is our first two games that were canceled were actually night games. So maybe we clarified it's games that we actually play are afternoon games this year, instead of just ones on the schedule for that. But yeah, I was asked to tell a little about how the UCLA game came to be, which I had to write down probably a full page of notes here just to hopefully I remembered how everything went for it, because it was really a week unlike any other. And we really haven't had a normal week yet. I think we've realized that almost every day we have to pivot on something related to the coronavirus here. Obviously we had that first game against Washington that was canceled, and then just how things sort of played out last week. But I'd like maybe just go back to the week of the Washington game first, about what happened there. So on early that week, we had gotten one of our student athletes. I'll just back it up a little bit more even further. So we do daily antigen testing for everybody, all the players every day, and then it's supplemented by at least 2 PCR tests a week. So the antigen tests are not 100% accurate, but if you give them every day, the indication is it's going to catch somebody if they have the virus. And that's exactly what happened early 2 weeks ago, where we had an antigen test, came back positive. And so immediately, that student athlete was given a PCR test, and it came back positive. So we knew we had a positive case within the program. And so on, when that happened, then we go into contact tracing. We let public health know, we let University Health Services know, and then we start following what their protocols are. And one of them is to find out if anybody was within basically close contact for at least 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. It used to be 15 consecutive minutes. But about 3 weeks ago, the CDC changed its guidance to put it over a 24-hour period. And so that, unfortunately, it knocked out several of our players, as it's come out, it's, most of them at one position group. So we announced on that Wednesday before the Washington game that we had the positive test and that we had people in contact tracing. And we're still working with public health to get some things finalized. And finally, the next day, we realized that they were going to be quarantined through at least the Washington game. And so we made that announcement that date that we couldn't play the game because we didn't have enough players at one position for that. The good news is the player who tested positive has been asymptomatic all the way through for that. And then fast forward a week, and we got to last Wednesday, and we started to get word from public health that we thought we'd be able to play on Sunday after the end of the quarantine period, and to be able to, thinking we could get permission to travel on that Saturday, which means we'd have to move the game to Sunday, but that was certainly a possibility on it. The players that were in quarantined were actually able to start practicing as if they were their own position group. They couldn't practice with the team at all because they were still technically in quarantine, but we got permission for them to practice together on their own as a group. A lot of it conditioning and a little bit of skill work that was going on. Nobody else was out there other than just that group for it. And then we started getting into Thursday, and we started hearing that there might be a positive or two in the Arizona State program. And on Friday, that's when it was a meeting, I think, at Arizona State, and they determined that they were not going to be able to play. And so at 9 o'clock on Friday morning is when we got word that the game was canceled because of a COVID outbreak at Arizona State that affected a number of players, and unfortunately also their head coach too, Herm Edwards, was impacted by it. At that point, there were a lot of rumors, I think, that were swirling. We had heard that, well, we'd known that there was at least a positive case at Oregon State, and we're wondering, were they going to be able to play their game at Washington? We knew that Utah, which had missed the week before, might not be able to play its game at UCLA. So there was talk, do we go possibly play Washington? Would it be in Berkeley, like it had been scheduled the week before, or would it be up in Seattle? Because they were preparing for a home game and we had a charter ready to fly out. But then it turned out really that at noon, we found out that Utah had to cancel, that they had an outbreak, and the continuing outbreak, and they weren't able to play their game at UCLA. And so the phones are working hard the whole time. And less than 40 minutes later, there we were announcing a game to play at UCLA at 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, which is what was going to be allowed for us to do that. But then UCLA also had to work out another arrangement because they were to have a game supposed to be this week on a Friday against Oregon, and they wouldn't agree to play Sunday if they had to play Oregon on Friday. So that game had to be moved as well. So a lot of just, obviously maneuvering, a lot of phone calls back and forth. One of the stories that I've heard Jim Knowlton tell a couple times now is that in talking to our equipment truck driver, that he feels there may be a lack of leadership within the athletic department because of how we had to deal with them. That he came in on Thursday expecting to drive our equipment truck to Arizona State. And we said, hold on, we'll put you up in a hotel. We'll tell you Friday where to go. And then at one point it was, all right, you're going to unpack your truck. We're going to play the game in Berkeley. And then, nope, we're not going to do that. You're going to have to drive to Seattle. And nope, don't do that. You're going to drive to LA. And so actually at 3 o'clock on that Friday afternoon, he finally hit the road to make it down to LA in time to get all the equipment that were down there. And so, yeah, it was just really, I think, a lot of work on a lot of people's part. There were, phone calls to hotels to be able to take Utah's hotel rooms, for example. We took Utah's planned meals at the hotel. So that didn't have to be created. And I think even their buses were set up that way. So it was just, some of it was a little bit fortuitous that way, but I think it just shows that, if we want to have a game, and in this case, our players really wanted to play a game, it's going to take some extraordinary efforts to get there. The one other thing that came out of it too, when we talked about it afterwards, is I think we have to be probably prepared every week to possibly host a home game. Just because you never know if somebody's going to turn up with too many positive tests and a game gets canceled. And so that might mean that you have to change on a moment's notice. You don't like having that happen, and probably don't want to have it happen every week, but it's just trying to be prepared when we just don't know what's going to happen next, and you don't know when an outbreak might occur for that. But that's basically what happened. I think I went through that quite quickly there, but if there's any questions or anything like that, certainly happy to answer any, and see if I can shed some more light on it.
I have a question, or just about contact tracing throughout the team. I don't need to get into any kid's personal story, but do you find, are you able to find out, well, where kids are getting infected, and you know, maybe it's a matter of the bubble isn't tight enough, or teenagers just going to be teenagers kind of thing. Do you find information that's at all helpful enough to keep it from happening the second time?
Yeah, I think that's
put it that way.
Yep. You know, I think that's one of the things that you know, Coach Wilcox has asked, and even Jim Knowlton too, is like, what can we do better? You know, a lot of people put a lot of effort into putting together a plan for how we were going to manage through. We're very conservative what we did. I mean, right now we've got almost everything is outside. The players are not using their locker room right now. They change outside. We have tents for them, but you know, the meetings are outside. The training room is outside. Yeah, we're using the position meeting room. We're using the concourse, and we've got televisions and set up out throughout the concourse with chairs around the sets, all 6-7 feet apart to keep everybody socially distanced, wearing masks at all times. So what can you do better? What can we do different to try to prevent it? And I don't know if there's really a clear answer. Where this particular case came from, I don't know. I think, you know, we haven't seen another positive within the program, but we do have to follow what the contact tracing is, and that's, you know, that's run by public health and university health services. You know, talking to the person who became positive, and then they investigate to determine who might have been within that, I guess, close contact there for 15 minutes or more. But yeah, it's a good question. No question about it.
Tell you what, I'm going to read a question from Patty. I can't find a microphone. A common question, I think.
Okay.
Kudos for the Major League hoop jumping. We've all heard it was a defensive line that was infected. Why are you still saying a unit? And what is the Pac-12 doing about Chip Kelly's huge face mask violations? I believe, and Patty comments, I believe his arrogance ought to be rewarded with a huge fine.
So regarding regarding Chip Kelly, that's a Pac-12 issue. That's not something I think that we can comment on it. Honestly, I didn't notice it, but again, that's something for the Pac-12 to determine. Regarding the position, there's student privacy laws that we have to follow, and I know things are reported what they are, but given the HIPAA regulations and certain FERPA regulations, just federal student privacy, we're not allowed to identify the individual or those that are contact traced. So we've been very general, just saying it's a position group and leaving it at that. But you know, media may write what they do, but we can't comment on that either way.
If you have questions, let me know. Don, Don, why don't you go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question?
It wasn't a question. He just had said it was a Pac-12, and I was commenting to Patty that the SEC does fine coaches and staff, and it actually gets published, you know, in the newspaper about what the fines are. I think there were several like $25,000 fines. Anyway, I'll mute myself.
Okay, and Greg has a question. Greg, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I just remembered how to unmute. Hey, Herb, as all this was unfolding, and then since then, and based on what you covered, I don't know if you know or you can answer this question, but did the city of Berkeley end up relaxing the 14-day quarantine rule, or did they enforce it all the way to the end and the 14 days just started a few days earlier than when the positive test was communicated? And the main reason I think that could be an important question is if something happens again, you know, and the 14-day quarantine rule is not flexible, such as some guidance that's come out from the CDC that 10 days might be okay instead of 14, and, you know, that sort of thing. Thank you.
No, thanks. It's another good question. Yeah, and this is where sometimes it gets complicated or where some of the conversation goes. No, the city of Berkeley or Berkeley Public Health didn't change that. We never announced, and we won't. Again, it's a privacy issue in terms of when the quarantine period actually started, because you go back not when the positive test happened, but when the last close contact was. What we were able to do, though, was to be able to get permission to travel on Saturday and play on Sunday. And so that's basically how it all worked out.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions for Herb? Okay, yeah, Paul, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, I think maybe it's me. Is that, oh. No, that's Paul, okay.
Go ahead, Andrea, if you have a question.
I just, Herb, I heard that this week on campus, the Berkeley community has launched this contact tracing app that all students and staff and people can log into now, and they will be notified if in fact they're close to someone who has been exposed. I wasn't exactly sure, but maybe you can just clarify that, because that was really interesting when I heard about that.
No, sure, happy to. It's called COVID Notify, and we do it through your phone, your cell phone. So the way it works is if you register for it and somebody who's also in the system comes down positive, they'll basically get a code, random code that they put into their phone, and anybody who was deemed to be within 6 feet of that person for 15 minutes or more will get a notification on their phone that somebody that they were close to tested positive. It's all anonymous, so you won't know who it was, but at least it gives you an indication that you probably should go get tested because you were within, have close contact with somebody for at least 15 minutes. I know that we're doing it at Berkeley. I believe it's been doing, this is an app that's actually can be available around the rest of the country. I know other UCs have picked it up. When I filled it out on my phone, you actually pick out which state that you live in. So that just gave me an indication it could be anywhere as well. But no, it's just another tool that's there. And you know, I think some people were questioning, does this mean that you're being watched more by Apple and Google, whoever, but they're probably following you anyway with all the apps you already have. So, but just another tool, I think, trying to help keep people safe that way.
Okay, I don't know if Paul was able to unmute, but he put a question in chat, so we'll ask one more question here for you. Is which players are out due to COVID or for some other reason for the Oregon State game?
We haven't given an update for the game. I believe we did announce earlier today, and I apologize, I missed Coach Wilcox's media availability because I had a conflict with it. But I believe he said that unfortunately Aaron Maldonado is out for the year with a lower body injury. I don't know the nature of it. And that's really, I believe, the only injury that we've talked about so far. And he'll give an update as we get closer to game time.
He did mention a wide receiver also was out for the season. A freshman, I think, a new guy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the availability, so I don't have that information here with me.
Okay, Herb, thanks so much for joining in. We'd love to have you stay for the rest of the meeting. I know you know Roxy from way back, so hoping you can hang around.
Sounds good. Yeah, it'll be good to hear from him. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Great to get the update, and we really appreciate it. Before I introduce Roxy, I just want to mention that the person who just commented, Greg Overholter, my old roommate at Airman Hall, and we go back to Deutsch Hall freshman year. Some of you may receive Greg's newsletter that he puts out, the Cal Sports newsletter, where he kind of compiles all the different articles and puts his own commentary in. If you don't get that newsletter, my guess is that Greg would be happy to add you to his mailing list. And I can, Greg, if okay, I put your email into chat.
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So here in a second, I'll put Greg's email into chat, and you can give him send him an email, and he'd be more than happy to add you to his list. It's all information Cal. It's kind of Cal News Central. Right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our featured speaker tonight. Roxy Bernstein from ESPN goes way back to his Cal days of announcing Cal basketball and just pretty much any Cal sport Roxy knows about, and he's talked about, and he's announced. He's been here many times before, and he is always one of our favorites. And I know it's kind of tough. He's busy these days, so it's hard for him to travel to Sacramento. So when I realized we were going to be on Zoom, and that would make it a lot easier, Roxy was one of the first people I thought of. Well, we got to get back to Grid Club. So with that, I'm not going to take any more time. Roxy, take it away.
Well, I'm not traveling anywhere these days. Everything has been from home, which is certainly a unique experience, but thanks for having me back. It's unfortunate I can't make my way up there to Sacramento and we can't meet in person, but I guess this is the next best thing. And I just want to say, Robert, I see you on the grid here. Just want to say how big a fan I am of yours and how much admiration I have for you and what you've been doing. And it's great to see you doing well. Really happy for what you're doing and your success.
Thanks, Roxy. It's good to be here.
I'm surprised Herb stayed because he's heard all my stories over the years. But it is nice to keep the Cal connection, even though I'm, working for ESPN and the Pac-12 network these days. It's an interesting time, certainly not just in the world and what we're all dealing with, but in our business right now. I've been broadcasting games from home, right where I'm sitting. I did a couple A's games from the stadium this season, some home games, which was certainly a unique experience to be sitting in an empty ballpark with no fans and just players on the field and a handful of people in the stands. But unfortunately, that's where we are for sports in 2020. And for the most part, though, I've been sitting right here, whether it was doing Major League Baseball for ESPN Radio or I've been calling either college football or the NFL. It's been right here from my home studio. And ESPN sent me some equipment, which I have sitting on the corner of my desk. And we do everything through a Zoom. I'm here, my analysts are all over where they happen to be at their homes, whether it's I'm doing baseball, for example, with Chris Singleton, who grew up and went to Pinole Valley High School, but he lives in Atlanta now. Connect to our studio in Bristol, Connecticut. And it's a strange time to have all these Zoom meetings and figuring stuff out. And I've had to make technology my friend, which hasn't necessarily been an easy transition for me. It has taken some getting used to, that's for sure. But the other thing I've learned in sports in 2020, we don't ask questions. We don't complain. This is the situation. We're just doing it. And we're going to do the best we can with it and make the most of the situation. And I got an NFL game coming up this Sunday. I'm doing the Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. The following Sunday, I'm going to be doing the Saints and the Broncos. So at ESPN, basically, it's very minimal travel. They did go to the bubble in the NBA. Initially, that wasn't the plan. They weren't going to go. And then the NBA kind of put pressure on the powers that be at the home office in Bristol, and they reversed course and decided to send broadcast talent, whether it was television or radio, to Orlando. But baseball, everything is done either at home or from the studio. And that's unfortunately the nature of the business right now. It's different for Pac-12 Network, for example, for basketball season, which is starting, believe it or not, next Wednesday. And the Pac-12 Network has 9 games to produce on opening night. I'm going to have to travel, which I have not been on an airplane since I came home from the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas on March 12th. Not exactly sure how I feel about traveling. It'll certainly be different, but it is the situation. So I'm heading up to Oregon to do their opening night. As Oregon will play Shantae Leggins in Eastern Washington. So I'm anticipating an interesting matchup because Shantae's got a pretty good team, and he knocked off Stanford a couple of years ago. Happy for his success, and great to see a former Cal Bear do well. And one of, two guys on that same team that are now head coaches in college basketball with him, and then Dennis Gates as the head coach at Cleveland State. But that'll be my first excursion. I've been in my bed every night ever since this started. So it'll be weird to actually be in the environment. I may have to retrain myself to broadcast a game that's being played right in front of me. But I am anxiously looking forward to getting in that atmosphere again. And certainly at home, it's interesting to try to create that energy that you're at the stadium and try to get into the rhythm of the game and looking over Zoom at my partner instead of just looking to my right. But it is what sports has become, unfortunately, here in 2020, and we deal with it. So, but that's how I've been killing my time, basically sitting right here, broadcasting games and doing stuff for Sirius XM radio. Anybody have anything they want to bring up and talk about?
Anybody have any questions for Roxy? Go ahead and put them into chat. So I'm going to ask you a question, Roxy, and it's one that I think is maybe sort of an elephant in the room type of a question. Do you see yourself ever replacing Joe Starkey when Joe decides to retire?
I'm gonna take a quote from I'm not going to call him my mentor, maybe my sage advisor, Bill Walton. I don't deal in hypotheticals. It's an if question. I don't know, and I don't know idea how long Joe may go on forever for all we know, right? Joe
already has.
Well, he could outlive me for all I know, right? So I can't answer that question. Just it's an if. It's a hypothetical, and one day, all right, maybe I have a conversation with somebody about it, but Gary, to be honest, it's the furthest thing from my mind right now. Look, I love my connection to Cal. I try to keep it and the relationships I have, and nobody wants to see Cal succeed more than I do, and follows each game as intently as I do. And it was not pleasant to be around me Sunday morning, as I'm sure a lot of other people on the call. But I have no idea what the future holds. Right now, I'm thrilled to be with ESPN. They've been great to me, especially during these tough times where a lot of really good people I work with lost their jobs last week. A lot of my producers and directors, unfortunately, had their positions eliminated. The Pac-12 network has treated me very well. So I'm thrilled with where I'm at right now, but I couldn't tell you what's going to happen 5-10 years from now. No idea.
All right. I know it's a question on a lot of people's minds, and I'll just say that
flattering, but
we love Joe, but we would.
So
I think people would love to see you in his seat too. All right, Patty, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Patty, you there?
Hey, Rox. Yeah.
Hi there, Patty.
Hi. I hate Zoom, but I love it because you and Herb get to play with us, and Andrea gets to be here, and we get to see Robert Paylor.
We could have carpooled if we had come up with something.
Yeah, who knows? So when you have to watch the game on TV at the same time we're watching it and call it from home?
No. I get it. If you're watching the same game that I am or calling, I probably get it 15 to 20 seconds before you see it on your TV. So for the NFL, it's been challenging because all we have access to is something they call the dirty feed. So basically, Bristol is pulling it in the direct feed from the production truck wherever the stadium is at. Like, for example, last week we did the Packers and the Jaguars game. And so we're getting the feed directly from CBS's television truck to Bristol. And over this Zoom, I log into it, but that's the only camera angle that we have available to us. I don't have, for example, what we call the All-22, where we can see the entire field. We don't have a camera on the scoreboard. All I see is the same picture you're looking at. The only difference is I get it probably 15 to 20 seconds before you do. With college football, it's a little bit different. It's college football because a lot of those productions are ESPN productions. So we'll have access to multiple camera angles, whether it's so I can see the entire field, the scoreboard. When I was doing Major League Baseball, we have access to what we called was the quad box, where there is the camera high above home plate so I can see the entire field. I can see how the defense is aligned. We had cameras on each bullpen and the scoreboards. And then I have a couple monitors here in my office where I can run a cord to, so I've become pretty technically savvy with Zoom, so I can pin one of the or two of the screens to different devices in here so I can take a look and see different things. It's been a lot easier to call Major League Baseball and college football than it is. The NFL has so many rules and regulations you have to get to. And just for us to, for example, have that entire field look, the All-22 camera, it has to make its way up the chain to the NFL competition committee. And they have to approve that we can see this, because they feel there might be some scouting edge that some team may get if that feed becomes accessible or available to other people. So we're under those unfortunate constraints. So the NFL has been a lot more challenging to work than college football or Major League Baseball.
Well, I'll tell you that sometimes it's hard if we're watching TV and we get idiot announcers and we go, no, I'm going to listen to it on the radio and watch it on TV, and the 7-second delay, or that's what I thought it was, but apparently we're not really watching in real time.
No, it's not. I don't know how the satellites work, and I don't know why everything is this way, but it is. But you know, we all deal with it. And I like that instantaneous feel too. The funny thing was, when I went out to the Coliseum and called a baseball game that was being played in front of me, I had to retrain myself to actually watch the game on the field instead of looking at the television monitor like off to my left to see the game. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, the game's being played right there. Because it was like, the first game I did was like on a Wednesday night, and then on the Monday I did a game from home on TV, then I went back to doing one Saturday and Sunday. So it's certainly, I had to rethink about the way I call games, unfortunately, these days.
Yeah, well, you do a spectacular job.
Thank you. Thanks, Patty.
Out.
Nick, you have a question. Nick.
Sorry, I had some trouble with my mute. A little bit of a tongue-in-cheek question. I'm curious, I'm most excited to see Matt Bradley this year for Cal, and I'm curious what you would say his odds are for making a run at Pac-12 Player of the Year, and what his chief competition in that category might be.
I think he's definitely, Nick, a first-team All-Pac-12 player, and I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think unanimously he was on the preseason ballot. He was on my ballot that I turned in. The hard thing for him is going to be, let's face it, more than likely, we're probably going to finish in the bottom half of the league, is my guess. I hope I'm wrong. And I have the utmost faith and confidence in Mark Fox. I think Mark is a terrific head coach. And last year, he really impressed me with the job that he did with that team. To be honest, I didn't think there was that much talent on that team last year at all. And somehow he was able to squeeze everything out of those guys. They were competitive in just about every game. They played with some toughness, especially at home. It was great to see how well they performed at home and some of the really good wins that they had at home. And Matt clearly was the best player on the floor for Cal. I don't think it was even close. And he is an all-conference performer. But for him to win Pac-12 Player of the Year, normally when you look at it, the trend has been the best player on the best team tends to win the award, right? That's just, unfortunately, the way it goes, unless there's some just spectacular performance that's so much better than everybody else. So if Matt comes in and he averages 24 or 25 points a game, and there's a significant gap between him and, let's say, the guy who's second in the league in scoring, and we happen to outperform those expectations, and we're maybe competing for a top 4 spot, getting a bye at the Pac-12 tournament. For me, that's what it would probably take for Matt to be in that conversation. When I look at the Pac-12 this year, I see 3 teams that are probably on tier 1 with Arizona State, UCLA, and Oregon. And then there's the second level of teams to me that are NCAA tournament type teams that are postseason. When I see the talent that USC has, bringing in the number 1 recruit in the country. I think Stanford, there's still some questions about them, but they have recruited very well and they have a lot of talent back. Arizona's kind of a question mark because of Sean has gone to a different recruiting model now. He's brought in more international players, which is something he really hasn't done. Okay, he did have Lowry Markkanen and Dusan Ristic, but he didn't have a group of them like he's got this year. He had a couple transfers sitting out who both have Northern California ties. And James Akinjo, the transfer from Georgetown, and a lot of people are high on him, plus Jordan Brown is there as well. So I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch. I think Colorado is another team because I'm such a huge McKinley Wright fan. I think that he's as valuable to his team as any player is to their team in the conference. Utah's got a lot of depth. If I had to venture a guess, Nick, right now, I'd give the edge to Remy Martin going in as the preseason player of the year for me. But, you know, it's all great for conversation right now, but let's see how things play out. But again, getting back to your question about Matt, he needs to have just a super extraordinary season to be in the conversation for player of the year. There's no doubt in my mind, though, he will be a first-team All Pac-12 player.
All right, great. Thanks, Roxy. Greg, you're up next.
Hey, Roxy, how you doing?
Greg.
Hello, Roxy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, even though it's over Zoom. So I put the first part of the question in the chat, which is, do the Bears have a basketball game before the ASU game that I saw announced on December 3rd? And the second part of the question, which is sort of related, is I don't remember reading why the schedule is so weird and that we play 2 Pac-12 games right at the beginning of December and then don't play anymore until end of December, early January.
Because this year they've changed the scheduling model and they've gone from the customary 18 conference games to 20. And so they had to allot for, in the scheduling, how to slot those extra 2 league games in. And this is not just a COVID 2020, 2021 scheduling thing. The 20 league games is here to stay. The coaches were all in favor of this because they feel it's better for the RPI and the overall schedule for the teams to play 2 more conference games. And it helps them, I think, evaluate when they get to the NCAA tournament to have a couple more challenging games instead of, playing a team that happens to be ranked in the 300s in the RPI. Right. So they had to adjust the schedule according, and they didn't want to put games around the holidays. So I think they figured that early December was the best option for putting those extra couple of games in. I don't think it's become official yet, but I can pretty much guarantee that Cal will be playing on the opening day of college basketball, November 25th.
Okay.
I'm sworn to secrecy on who and where they're playing, but mark it down, they will be playing on November 25th, the day before Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you for that.
Okay, Rick Holmes has a question. Rick, do you want to go ahead and ask?
Okay. Hey, Roxy. Thanks
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
for the information. It's got to be throwing everything out the window and starting over again this year. I was just
unique.
I was just making a tongue-in-cheek comment as we were talking. Is Gary's question about taking over, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But the thing that popped in my mind is, do you make it a point to accurately announce such things as down and distance when you're broadcasting a game?
Every play I do, yes. Yes. I think especially when you're doing radio, look, if you're listening to me on the radio, you can't see the game. So I've got to clue you in what's happening, everything specifically. I try to give the time and score as much as possible. And doing a game on TV as opposed to radio they're very different animals. They really are. On TV, look, you can see the game. And I don't need to state the obvious. I'm there. On TV, I'm there to make the analyst the star, right? I'm there to tee them up, throw them softballs, let them show you their expertise, and we're there to entertain you for 2 hours while you watch a game. And we try to be informative at the same time. And sometimes it can be a little more challenging than others, depending who's sitting next to me. It just, if there's a 6'11" former redhead guy that went to UCLA sitting next to me, that always has a lot more challenges than anybody else. But when you're doing a game on radio, you have to be as specific as possible and try to be the eyes, and you have to be the ears of the listener and let them know exactly what's happening. So I have a specific thing I try to do when I'm doing games, and yes, down and distance comes into play heavily every single play.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you hear, and it's a big gain on first down. What a play. Bears line up at 2nd and 8. What? So thank you.
You got it.
Joe is up next. Joe Selwitz?
Yeah, hey, Roxy. For the
Hi, Joe.
record, I teed this question up before you made mention of the deadhead redhead from UCLA, but
First off, I dig the background there at the Bears lair. That's awesome.
oh, thank you. I wish I was there right now. Yeah, but what is it like calling a game with Walton, and specifically, what adjustments do you have to make to your usual play-by-play?
You ever jumped on a bucking bronco before?
I have not.
Neither have I, but I'm guessing that's what it's like. Look, it's different preparing to work with Bill than anybody else. Whether I'm working with Sean Farnham, whether I'm with Corey Williams, throw whatever analyst you want at me, Fran Fraschilla, whoever I get to work with, Don McClain, whoever it happens to be. With Bill, not only do I have to prepare for the game and study both teams, I have to prepare for him. And first off, there's no way to anticipate what Bill's thinking for that particular night. We don't talk before the game. He doesn't want to have that conversation. He wants my initial reaction to be seen by everybody or heard by everybody. So the leading up to the game, we go to each team's shoot around or walk through during the course of the day. We'll come in. We may say hello. We probably do. We may remind hey, we're going to have dinner after the game tonight. And that's as far as our conversation goes. If I was even to remotely bring anything up, he would stop me and say, save it for air. And that's the end of our dialogue. So I'll sit on one side of the arena, he'll sit at the other. And we watch, we do our things, we have our conversations. And I know I have to hurry. If there's somebody I really need to talk to from that particular team, I better do it in the first 5 minutes, or I run the risk of being shut out because Bill will monopolize somebody the entire time. And so knowing this, I have a strategy going in, and I have to get my work done quickly or I'm going to be SOL. But in addition to preparing for the teams, I also try to prepare for him. So I study up whose famous birthday it is that day, what connection does this building or this city or school have to the Grateful Dead or the Dead and Company? I keep track of where the Dead and Company may happen to be. But I never have any idea where it's going to go. Nothing is planned. And when you're seeing it for the first time or hearing it for the first time, so am I. This is, I'm never going to forget this one as long as I live. So the Pac-12 China game. So Bill and I were there in Shanghai each of the first 3 years. And then Sean Farnham has gone with me the last 2. Year 3, you may remember about something that happened with some UCLA players over in China. That kind of became an international incident. Needless to say, everybody was deathly nervous about what Bill would say on TV. I wasn't, because first off, I know Bill. And people who think he's just crazed lunatic that's just talking and spewing random stuff and he's on a dead trip, that's not the case. Bill is, first off, Bill is a genius. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he's inciting reaction in you at home regardless. But when you watch Bill, you have a feeling either way. You either love him or you hate him. And there's nobody in the middle. And if you look at social media during the course of a game, I'm sure some of you probably do, it is hysterical just to see the reaction he gets from people either way. So we're having these meetings, these production meetings leading up to the game. And Bill would not tell anybody what he was going to say because that's just, Bill doesn't do it. And we had not only, our producer and director were involved because we're partnering with the Chinese media company to produce the game. We had conversations back with our bosses in Bristol. We had the ESPN news department was involved in this situation. And so, and I wasn't going on there. Everybody was so nervous about what was going to happen during the broadcast. And I basically read verbatim what somebody in Bristol had written for me, stating the facts, what we knew about the situation. And I wasn't going to say anything else. I was not going to create an international incident. I was not going to get anybody upset with me. I wasn't going to ruffle any feathers. If anybody had an issue, they'd take it up with our news department because I'm just regurgitating what they told me to say. Then comes Bill. And after I stated the facts, Bill went on to apologize on behalf of the entire human race to the government and citizens of China for the embarrassment caused by players. And I just lost it. And it's the first time I really have just, I could not stop laughing for about 30 seconds. And if you rewatch the broadcast, there is a 30-second gap. Bill rambles anyways, but I don't say anything. I don't try to stop him. I have my mic shut off. I hit my mute button because I just could not stop laughing what Bill had said. And I just picked it up after that point on. All right, Bill, we got a game. Let's go. UCLA, Georgia Tech. But that's what it's like working with Bill. You just don't know what's going to happen from minute to minute.
David Grimmingham.
But I'll tell you, there is
Join the meeting.
More genuine person than him. If you see him at games, he stays 45 minutes, however long it takes. Everybody wants an autograph or a picture. He doesn't leave until everybody's taken care of. And he loves it. He loves the interaction with the fans. And he just celebrates wherever he's at. He's been through so much in his life in terms of all the injuries and the physical problems he's had and a lot of the mental depression that he dealt with. And I don't know if anybody's read his book, but it's fabulous. It really is. And he is in the happiest place right now. And he's maybe not at this particular time because he's pretty despondent with what's been going on, but he celebrates the event and makes it to be the biggest game there ever was. Even if he's doing the 12th place team in the Pac-12 against the 11th place team in the Pac-12, we have a game. It's the game of the millennium. Let's go.
Great stuff. Long live the Conference of Champions. Thanks.
Roxy, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not going anywhere, Gary.
Okay, yeah, to join the club. Yeah, Rob, you had a question.
Sure thing. Hey, Roxy, thanks
Hi,
for
Rob.
joining us tonight. Happy to say listener back to the CalAX days, but I'm curious, with the lack of fans at games this year, presumably anyway, in the Pac-12, do you think there's any school or schools that might be particularly affected by the lack of fan support in the house?
Well, Washington State may have an advantage because they're used to it for basketball. Sorry, that was a low blow to the Cougs. Yeah, I think there's, for example, Arizona, when they sell out every night, right? They're used to getting that surge and that rush and that energy from the fans when they've got, 14,500 people going nuts at McHale. I think they're the team that could get hurt from this a little bit. That's the one team where I've in the Pac-12 I've really noticed that a home court advantage is a little bit different. Oregon, when they've had great teams, when Washington's been really good, that's been a terrific home court advantage for them. Arizona State has become a much better home court in recent years with Bobby Hurley having success with that team. And the thing for me is I'm going to be self-conscious about what I'm going to say because I got a feeling everybody's going to hear what I'm saying, right? When I'm calling a game, there's nobody in there. There's squeaking of the sneakers and the bouncing of the ball. And, okay, the coaches are barking out, but they're going to hear me too. So I might have to tone it down like I'm broadcasting the Masters or something, like I'm doing golf. I mean, I'm a little on edge about what it's going to be like to call a game with nobody in the stands.
All right, Patty, you had another question.
Yeah, quick question, or maybe two questions. Might we get into Harmon Haas later on? And more importantly, who's the starting point?
Let's tackle the first one first. I give the edge to Joel Brown, wouldn't you? Just because he's been there and having a year of experience. And I've heard he had a really good offseason in terms of growing from his freshman to sophomore year. So I'm anxious to see how he has developed because I've heard really good things about him. So that's, Patty, where my guess will be.
Okay, well, I have heard that too, and I've met him, and he is so charming.
Great kid.
This is important to me, so I would love it if he gets the start.
And that's the one thing that I've loved about this program for years now. It's not just, okay, with Mark and the guys he's got now, but you go back to the kids that White King brought in, or Konzo, Mike, Ben, you keep going back further. They've all been great kids in the program. They really have. And there's been very few kids that have been difficult. And that's the one thing I've admired over the years just about the kids that are brought in the program, because it's more than just the talent.
Yeah,
and even,
my points have been great.
Even as good a player as, for example, Jaylen Brown was, right? But Jaylen Brown off the floor, what he's been doing is tremendous for social justice. That he just wasn't coming out to California just to play ball. He came out to get an education, similar to what Sharif did years ago. And I was so admirable where Sharif went back and got his degree. That's something I could see Jaylen Brown doing, is coming back to get it. But that's the one thing, is these kids are great. Matt Bradley's a great kid. He's probably the one I've talked to the most of the current players. But you go back over the years, and I just have so many favorites. I can't pick one or two just because there's been so many terrific guys that have come through the program.
Absolutely.
And will we have fans in Haas? Your guess is as good as mine, Patty. I just go where I'm told to go, and I do what I'm told to do.
I'm ready. Let me in.
It would be nice. It would be nice.
Hey, Andrea, you had a question. You had the question.
Well, I just wanted to get Roxy's take on what happened Sunday morning, and just kind of get, I've been reading everything, and trying to figure out what the truth is. So anyway, just whatever your thoughts are.
You don't want to see the text chain of frustration that a few of us had. You know what, for me, to be honest, is the game was thrown together in 43 hours. They hadn't practiced 11 on 11 in a couple weeks. The entire defensive line was in quarantine. We didn't game plan at all for UCLA. I think they do things very differently defensively than UCLA, which I think caused problems for our offense. And I just think it was a tough situation to be in. And I'm not surprised we didn't play well. I'm not. Everybody knows we're better than we played. We are a good football team, and I think it'll show. And I think we'll be much better on Saturday, just because we've had a full week of practice. Look, assuming that everybody stays okay and everybody can stay healthy. And that's the one thing I've also learned: we can't assume anything from day to day, whether it's sports or anything. Here's the situation, we deal with it. And from week to week in football, we don't know what's going to happen. And we just hope that everybody stays safe and stays healthy. And if that's the case, I expect a really good performance on Saturday against Oregon State, because we're much better than we showed. Our offense struggled. The defense, I've never seen Justin's defense play that poorly. And whether it was getting ready for a new team, and give UCLA some credit. Dorian Thompson-Robinson played very well. And the Bruins came out. They were motivated because they were embarrassed the week before losing at Colorado. They had a game under their belt. We didn't. I'm just going to chalk it up to it was a bad day. They were the better team on that day. The situation, I think, played a lot into it and why we struggled so much.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Anybody else have any questions for Roxy? So, Roxy, I just have a couple of quick ones. First one is pretty much do you have a cutout in Memorial Stadium?
I do not, but I can show you on my wall. I do have, here, turn the lights on. They're in the room next to my office, in the hallway. You're getting a tour of I have this on my wall right here.
All right.
See that? And I do have one Cal jersey hanging up in my media room / man cave. As my son wants to pop in.
Hello.
There he is. Say hi to Jake.
Hey, Jake.
And so I have the Jared Goff jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's I had to put it up in my hallway.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Bill Walton jersey.
Right.
So that was my Father's Day gift this year from my wife and kids.
Great.
They just figured they'd torture me some more.
Well, I mean, maybe starting a tradition here, because last week Jim McGill gave us a little tour of his memorabilia and all his Cal swag too. So
is his better than mine? I'll be offended if it is.
No, I can't. No, of course not. My other question is, we have one more coming after. I'll do after my other one. This is kind of a silly question, but what would be your dream game to announce?
Cal in the Rose Bowl?
All right. Against?
Doesn't matter. Just Cal in the Rose Bowl. That's the dream, right? That's what we all want.
Great. Perfect.
Yes. Yay, Rocks.
Perfect. Okay. Ryan, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you got into broadcasting, and if it was something you kind of grew up like calling games as a kid, watching them, or how you got into it.
I got into it. I knew what I wanted to do from a pretty young age. I had a close family friend that just retired, was in the NBA for a long time, and I think I was like 5 or 6, and I got to sit with him at the table when he was broadcasting the Kansas City Kings way back in the day. Again, in a game against the Warriors, and I was hooked. This is it for me. And when I got to school, probably the second or third day I was at Cal, I went down and signed up and volunteered with a student radio station in CalX, and That's where I got to cut my teeth and got to broadcast a ton of games, whether it's football, basketball, men or women, baseball, and it just kind of fed the beast, if you will. And it's what I wanted to do, and some hard work, but luckily, right place, right time. Got hired when I was, 23 to be the radio voice of Cal basketball. And so it was a great opportunity for me, and certainly indebted to the people that took a chance on a young snot-nosed kid fresh out of school.
Okay, we have one more question from Paul. Paul, you able to unmute? Okay, Ben, you're having some trouble there. So I'll go ahead and ask this question for him.
I got it.
Oh, there you got it. Okay,
what does the future of the Pac-12 network look like?
As far as I know, it's going to keep going. And the Pac-12 has been adamant that they started their own network. They wanted to control it and own it. I don't think we'll know until the next television negotiations what the long-term future is. I think for the short term, look, we're still doing games. We're not going to have any football games this year on the network to fulfill and honor the contracts of ESPN and Fox. The Pac-12 was given all football content and game-wise to those two networks. I may end up calling a game or two for ESPN. I'm waiting to find out. And it would be from right here where I'm sitting. Hi. Hi. But the network, contrary to what gets written about the network and said in the media, it does pretty well. And maybe not as well as they had hoped and anticipated it would, but it does a lot better than I think people realize. And I know, for example, it's been a constant fodder or target for John Canzano, for example, from the Oregonian. He tends to stretch the truth, and he's had it in for Larry Scott for a long time. Mm-hmm. And to the point where he tries to, he exaggerates some points and he takes liberties. For example, when he makes reference to Larry Scott flying on charter planes and private planes. Is it true? Yes. Is he paying for it? No. He happens to fly, for example, he was in Pullman for a Washington State-Oregon game, and he flew on the private plane of one of the Oregon boosters. And I know he didn't pay for it. And I know, for example, he didn't pay for it because I was on the same flight coming back because I wanted to get home out of Pullman and they had a seat for me. So I went with him. So I know, for example, he's not paying for this stuff. He tries to make a big deal, for example, that Larry Scott gets this fabulous suite in Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament, and he's there for a week and a half, and an exorbitant suite. It comes with the signing of the building. It's part of the agreement and deal. It's not like the Pac-12 is paying whatever he's accusing them of paying. Okay, maybe the real estate is exceptionally high in San Francisco, but do they really want the network to be located in Pullman, Corvallis? Let's head to Tucson with the Pac-12. It just happens to be that way, and I think he's unfairly criticized at times. Does he deserve some criticism? Look, I think everybody does. But I think he's unfairly criticized for some things that for example, John Canzano's taken liberties and stretching the truth on. And the network is doing well. It will still broadcast the games it has to do and then some. It's unfortunate that they've had to cut some jobs with what's been going on, but everybody's been doing it. I mean, you look at ESPN and I just, the 300 jobs that were lost last week. And unfortunately, it's a sign of the times, not just in our business, but just about every industry is really hurting right now. And people like to take pot shots at Larry or the Pac-12 network. All right, fine, take your shots, but it's not exactly the truth.
Okay, we have several more questions here. How many more do you want to take, Roxy?
Take them all. I got, like I said, I got nothing to do, guys. I'm just sitting here in my home studio.
Okay, all right. So Linda Lee, I have a question. What's the revenue picture with more televised games?
the revenue for the conference is good with all these games being money for the league. It's significant financially that game was played, and the more games that are played, and somehow miraculously if we can get through this season without any more interruptions, which I don't know how likely that is, and I wouldn't feel comfortable in saying, oh, we're going to get every game in, but for every game that's played, it's very beneficial to the league.
Okay, and then next question from Dave is, what was the financial gain to play the Cal UCLA game versus not to play the game?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think John Wilner wrote it in his college hotline that basically it means $5 million for the league, as opposed to nothing coming in. Right. So it's a pretty good chunk of change for the league that game was played Sunday morning at 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan is asking, you talked about the difference between calling radio or TV. Which do you prefer?
Ryan was ever paying me that day. To be honest, I do like radio a little bit more. I do have a little more freedom. I'm in control more, to be honest with you. And I'm not a control freak by any stretch of the means, but where television, it's like I'm playing like air traffic controller, right? I've got game, I got my analyst, I've got a producer, director, I've got all these things. I got a stage manager handing me stuff. I've got a lot of things happening during the course of a game. Radio, I get left alone. I can just do my job. I can just do the game and get locked in and dialed in and broadcast whatever I got to do. TV happens to pay a little bit more. So you go where your bread is buttered. But now doing games from home, it's great. In Sunday morning, I'm 10 a.m. kickoff for the Browns and the Eagles coming up on Sunday. I'll be in sweats and flip-flops, and if I didn't happen to shave on Sunday morning or even comb my hair for that matter, it doesn't matter. Nobody can see me. I don't have to be presentable to anybody but people in my house.
All right, great. I think you answered the question about the UCLA game, but Dave also asks us, can people go to watch the big game from Tightwad Hill? I know it's been chained off. So
from my understanding, no, right? Yeah. That they're not allowing people up there. But then again, we know people in Berkeley can get creative. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I'm not a proponent of people camping out in trees, because we saw the disaster it created for the football program about 15 years ago. But I got a feeling that they're going to kick people down. There's no way to watch it up there. That they're going to police it pretty strongly.
And last question that we have here is from Rick. What's your opinion of Merton Hanks and what he brings to the table for the conference?
Merton Hanks is a former broadcast partner of mine, believe it or not. We go back the first go-around of the XFL. Wow. Merton Hanks and I were the radio team for the San Francisco Demons. So I go back a long ways. I was a huge fan of his as a player growing up, a 49er fan. He's got a tough chore. I mean, he stepped into a real tough situation. I'm sure his head has to be spinning with the stuff that he's had to deal with so far, but it comes with the territory. I'm a big fan of his. He worked for the NFL. He has previous college experience working with Conference USA. So to me, he's more than prepared for the position. But I don't think anybody's had to deal with what he's had to deal with in terms of from a publicity standpoint, from a sheer with trying to manage 12 programs under a pandemic and trying to orchestrate a football season. And look, and Herb was talking about it before in terms of what it took from Cal's perspective to get the game played on Sunday. But there was a lot of heavy lifting done by Merton, by Larry Scott, by Jamie Zaninovich of the Pac-12, certainly by the people at UCLA, by Andrew McGraw and Dennis Hallen in the Cal football office as well. It was a Herculean effort to be able to pull it off. And I was shocked they were able to do it, considering all that goes into planning a football game and then being able to partner with Fox to get the game on television. It was a minor miracle that the game got played, to be honest with you, in the way it got done. So nothing would surprise me, right? If you're under the assumption you're going to play Oregon State on Saturday afternoon at 12:30 until you got to go to Plan B. But let's hope for everybody's sake that is what happens on Saturday, and we got a football game in Corvallis at 12:30, and hopefully the Bears can get a W.
Yeah, I've been saying since March that the only thing that we know for 100% certain is whatever we know today could change tomorrow.
It's very true because, look, nobody anticipated Cal playing UCLA last Sunday, and how quickly it came together. And so hopefully everybody stays healthy, and we got the Bears and the Beavs on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Patty was the one that mentioned that the people in the travel and logistics office should be at combat pay.
Well, luckily for Cal, that Utah was supposed to go to LA, and they really much didn't have to change in terms of preparation from the hotel standpoint. The plane was already here because Cal was going to Arizona State. It just happened to luck out and pieces fit together for that game to be played.
Yeah,
I just wish the result was different.
We all do, believe me. All right, so we'll take one last question here from Dave. Dave, I'm going to let you open up and ask this one.
There we go. Hey, Roxy. Hi from Vacaville. Just wondering, do you chat much with Joe Starkey? What a bonanza.
We do from time to time, and when we see each other, whether I have a Cal game or he happens to show up at an A's game, for example. But when I see him, we talk, and we've had numerous conversations over the years. Not just him, but Mike Plosky and I are really friendly. And certainly Todd and I are very close, McKim as well. So those are, people that I enjoy when I see. And, it was really sad when Lee Grosscup passed away. What a terrific man Lee was, and just such a likable, welcoming guy. And was just a pleasure to be around. It was really heartbreaking to see when he passed away, but he was just a joy to be around. I'll miss the Cupper being around at Cal games.
Well, thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Bears. All right. Well, Roxy, we can't thank you enough. This has been great. And of course, you are always welcome here. And if you want to join a meeting, I don't know, are you on my mailing list? I should put you on there.
Your guess is as good as mine on that one.
I'll make sure you are. So you'll see what the meetings are, and come and join us anytime.
You know what? I'd be very interested to hear what Robert has to say next week. That'll be a fascinating discussion.
Well, thank you very much for the segue there. I'm putting into chat right now the link to register for next week's meeting to hear Robert. And so, definitely sign up for that. And then again, all my mailings now have the links to register for all of the meetings. You do, just like this meeting, you do need to register to get the link. And it's our little bit of security, I guess. And also helps me keep track of who's at the meeting and the guests we get. We had a great turnout tonight. Again, Roxy, thanks so much. I think Herb had to sign off, but appreciate Herb's insight. We'll try to get some more folks from the athletic department to join in here to give us some more of the inside scoop in lieu of the videos. So with that, I thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Roxy, Dave, for our game, our hopeful game against the Beavers this week, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to say 24-13, Cal.
All right.
Wrong score.
Wow.
It's going to be what's it?
I think the next generation is not quite on board with that.
31-13.
He says 31-13. He's saying they're getting another touchdown that I'm giving him credit for. There you go.
Okay, he's a good kid. We like him.
Go Jay.
Right. Thanks, everybody. And again, I just put into chat the link to the meeting next week to hear Robert. Everybody come down. It's going to be great. If you, I've heard, I've seen some Robert on some of the videos, and he's fantastic. You're going to want to see this. So we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody, for joining in, and we'll talk next week after a big win at Oregon State. So good night, everybody, and go Bears.
Go Bears.
Bears.